Hello everyone, welcome back to sort of a little haul vid and a bit of a sort of chit chat sort of vid today. Didn't get out to the boot fairs, trying to work this out, not this last weekend, the weekend before, to get anything because the weather was appalling. It was chucking it down with rain, so all of them were cancelled. I did try and skirt round thinking the weather might have missed the odd one, but they were all pretty much rained off, so nothing to get that week. I did, however, this previous weekend go to the London Film and Comic Con. To say it was a badly organised event may have been an understatement. If you enjoy queuing for about 6.5 hours to get in somewhere, so you can then have about hour and a half to 2 hours in the place before it shuts. Yeah, it wasn't that great. Organisation, I think, was the main issue, though there were massive amounts and numbers of people turning up because apparently it was billed as Stanley's last European visit or something like that, so everybody flocked to there to actually meet him, and I'd imagine there was a few thousand people who were disappointed. I know for a fact, a video I've seen, I actually saw myself and my fiancée in the queue, and we were over halfway up the queue, and we, like I say, we got in sort of late in the day, but there were still thousands of people behind us, so there was probably a lot of people who were disappointed that day. On the plus side, I did get a couple of things in there which made up for it. Like I say, it would have been nice if I'd have had longer. There was something else I saw there which I would have then gone back, and I was humming and ahhing about getting, and I would have stayed a bit longer and had a bit more of a detailed look round, but like I say, didn't have long in there, so we got a few bits, but like I say, it was kind of worth it in the long run because of that. First bit I got, which a lot of people think is not that major, but when I saw it I realised what it was, and Transformers cushion. Now these are new. There's a firm there who do all of the sort of like 80s cartoons, things like that, so they do cushions and covers, and so I got that one. But the reason I was more bothered about getting that is it's actually the same fabric as matches the original lamp that I've got, which I managed to pick up off eBay from the period. So although the fabric itself might be a modern copy, at least it matches. So if I could find that fabric to have some curtains made, it would quite nicely set off the room. But yeah, that weren't a bad little pickup. The other half saw something that she liked in the thing and decided not to bother, and then has since thought, oh, I'd like to get that cushion, so again that's something I might get her as a present later on for her little room where she's going to have a little book room where she collects children's books. But anyway, yeah, so I got that for my room, so that was quite a nice little thing. Something that I've been trying to get for, well, longer than Transformers has been out, so that'll give you a hint. As it turned out, when he used to appear down my way in stage shows, pantomime, stuff like that, he actually used to have the same barber from me, and I tried tons of times, and the barber kept saying that if, you know, next time he sees him, he'll get him to give me an autograph and that. And as it turned out, circumstance, that never happened. And I tried going to events where he was supposed to be, and then he'd been ill health and hadn't turned up, and previous commitments and all that kind of thing. But I finally managed to get Kenny Baker's autograph. So again, got his autograph, had a nice little chat to him and his wife. He wasn't too busy. By the time we got in there, the crowd died down a little bit, and it did mean we got a bit of a sort of 5-minute chat to him. And his wife was asking if a 6.5 hour wait was worth it for seeing Kenny. And And I must admit, I almost got a little bit teary at the point because I thought, well, yeah, it is actually, because I've been waiting over 30 years to get his autograph, so yeah, I suppose it is. But yeah, that was really sort of good. It was really nice to meet him, and his wife, of course. And yeah, that was a sort of like one of the highlights for me. But I did actually manage to find something G1. There was lots of stalls. I say lots. It's probably about the same as an average car boot for me, but there was lots. A lot of it was things like bobblehead things, which was a lot of Doctor Who stuff. That would have been in his element there. I did see some Action Force stuff, and I did toy with a couple of bits to whether or not to get them, but I was more looking for Transformers. There was a lot of people selling some quite modern stuff, things like the Generations Whirl was there, and I was tempted, but I'd still rather have the G1. I'm trying to think, what else did I see? There were some of the other newer Generations toys, but not the movie Generations toys, like the latest movie, like Age of Extinction. I might have had a look at the Hound, if there'd been one of them. I think he's probably going to end up the character most people are going to be keen to get. I'm trying to think what else. There was a couple of the Dinobots, but again, I wasn't overly fussed. And they were asking, a reasonable amount, let's put it this way. I was a bit more owed to spend on them at a convention where you think they'd be a bit more cutthroat in their pricing. What else did I see there? Like I say, there was some Action Force. There was some G1, fair bit of G1 what I've already got. A lot of loose, and there was a few box, but they were a bit tatty, the boxes. Did see some masterpieces. I must admit, if money was no object, there was the Sound Blaster with Rat-Bat. It was quite tempting at £100, and there was a couple of people trying to sell Masterpiece Grimlock in the two different, like the Takara and the Hasbro version, but they were going for about £170, which again is, I can't be bothered to get them for that sort of money. Trying to think what else. Like I say, it's a good selection. It's a real mishmash, so it's a little bit difficult to remember exact items because you get a little bit overwhelmed at the time. But I actually went round to this guy, and his stall had, as soon as I saw it, I saw G1 stuff, and I thought, right, beeline for that. And he put price tags on everything, so I didn't really have to ask too much. And had a look at it, opened it up, had a look at other bits inside, and apart from one gun, which is not too much of an issue to pick up, I will get around to it, especially if I see one going cheap. I actually managed to find a near complete G1 Pretender, but it's a Mega Pretender. I actually managed to get Roadblock. So you've got the main shell, which again is in pretty good condition. There's not really any of the fox on it. It needs maybe a little bit of a dust, but it's not discoloured in any way, which is a bonus because that would be prone to it, especially the light grey on it. There was the inner shell, if I can get that to show up in the light. So that's all there, all nicely still, nice and purple. Only piece missing is another one of these black guns for this part, but his visor's on him, all the wings are fine, all the joints are nice and stiff, so that was great. But it's when I took that out and I turned it over that this guy was there as well. So his little gold plastic GPS prone nasty little figure apart from a little chipping on the back, a little bit where his groin is, and his hands, which are massively prone to breaking, though it's still there enough to actually hold his gun. Yeah, that was complete enough. Now at some point I will review it and I will even try and attempt to transform it. It's probably been the last time it'll ever be transformed, but I was so impressed that that was still there, because that is a real pain in the backside, because virtually, apart from his legs, there's everything is GPSable. Wheels, his feet, his arms, his torso, his head. So to get that is quite a rarity. But even more rarity, the fact it had the little gun, because the little gun is the bit what you often see missing from this set, and that goes for nearly what I paid for this guy, which was 20 quid, which I know from sort of like looking on places like eBay and that this guy usually goes, when he's complete, like I say, he's only missing one gun, which is cheap enough to get. He usually goes for about 40 quid, and there might even be postage on top of that as well when you get it. So I was rather chuffed to find that. Now the only downside is, because it was near the end of the show, I still wanted to keep a chunk of my money, because like I say, going to get autographs, and there was Billy D. Williams there, who's Lando Calrissian, and I was hoping that we'd be able to get his one as well, and Peter Mayhew, who's Chewbacca. Peter Mayhew wasn't there, no sign of him anyway, so if he had been there earlier he'd gone. And Billy D. Williams had such a massive queue that if we'd have joined that queue we wouldn't even have got to him by the time they were actually going to close the place, so it would have cost the whole time I had in there just to get to him as well. So we sort of like had a look round, trying to see as much of it as we could. We never even got into the second hall, which was full of the comic book artists, who again I'd gone up there to see some of the guys who do the G1 and the IDW comics and the artwork and stuff like that, so I never even got a chance to see them, which I was gutted about. But yeah, I had to walk round, and I was going to go back to this guy because I still had some money left, and he had a Action Masters Megatron tank. Now it weren't complete, it had a lot of missile bits and projectiles, the tank turret, gun part, the extension on the barrel, missile part weren't there. But it did have the Action Master Megatron, and that was in better nick than the one I've got, and the bulk of the tank was there, and that was only 12 quid. And I'd ummed and ahed at the time when I picked up Roadblock, and I thought, I'll go back and get that, I think, because I've still got a few quid. Went back there, and for whatever reason, and this was only, I suppose it was about half an hour before it was going to close, so it weren't that long before they were coming over the tannoy telling people the place was going to shut, but he'd already packed up all of his gear. And you think, well, if you was doing an event, and the place was still heaving, you'd think, I'd wait right until that last time when the people were going out the door to pack up, because you've got to maximise the time you're going to sell, surely. And I mean, to be fair, you would have sold it. You would have sold it to me anyway. I mean, it was open again Sunday, so you may well have sold it to someone else, but I was a little bit gutted about that. Should have got it at the time. Knew that in my mind. Did see another thing, and I, again, ummed and ahed, because it was a reasonable price, but again, because I'm mainly Transformer collecting or picking stuff up cheap at the boot fairs, makes it a little bit more, I can afford to diversify into things like Action Force and that. But I did see the Robo Skull, and it did look pretty much complete for 55 quid, and I was very tempted. Yeah, that one, I'm also kind of thinking maybe I should have gone for that, but in the long run, will I have space for it? So I might have to sort of like refrain from some of the bigger things to do with Action Force. I know I got the Whale, but that's not so bad, because I got it cheap. At the end of the day, if I couldn't display that and I put it in the loft, it's not a big deal. So yeah, there were lots of things there. There were probably a few other bots that, if people had been asking a reasonable amount for, I might have picked up. There was Generation Straxis, Again, that is one I want, but when you got a loose figure, and he did look reasonably, I think it was complete. He did have its weapon and that in the packet because it's just in a plastic bag. But he was wanting, I think it was about 17 quid, and they sell for about 15 quid loose on eBay. So asking over the odds again. There was other generations ones, but they were missing like their projectiles. So again, there's like I think it was Ramjet, Acid Storm. I think that Generation Soundwave. And Generation Soundwave was again one I would have probably got, but again asking about 20 quid, and it's like, I know the Generations toys are good, but you've got to remember these are second hand loose, which they've probably picked up at a boot fair, or picked up if they've got a shop somewhere. They've picked them up where people have come in and got a few quid for them, so they're making their money on them. They could have charged a tenner and probably made a profit, but again, I'm not going to pay over the odds for stuff which I don't clamour for. I mean, to get G1 stuff, what's near complete, for a bargain price, I'd rather do that than pick up random bots and pay over the odds for them. Like I say, the actual event itself, the organisation was appalling. The queue must have been over 1,000 people in the queue. Could quite easily be 1,500, to be honest. It went the whole length of the complex, zigzagged at the bottom, up the other whole side of the complex and back, and then out into the road. Luckily it wasn't at that point when we joined it, but if we had a 6.5 hour wait, those people joining that queue in the hopes of getting in probably had about an 8 hour wait, so I don't think they got in unless they were queuing for the next day. So that was pretty poor. I think there has been a lot of complaints online. I had a look yesterday. A lot of people moaning about how crammed in people were when they first opened up, the heat. Even the celebrities apparently have been sort of complaining a bit about it as well, or were at the time people were when they were talking to them. But yeah, it's a shame because it put it was good that I got some bits. It was good that I managed to finally get that autograph, but it does put a bit of, I don't know, a dull sheen on the day. That if we'd have got in, I don't mind queuing. If it had been a couple of hours, I couldn't have cared less. I saw like the outside they had things like the movie Transformers, both versions of the first movie, Bumblebee, the Prime and Barricade were there. So I mean, there was stuff to look at, and there's all the cosplayers and that. There's people walking past and that, so you can have a laugh and look at them. So there was stuff to keep you amused, and to be honest, the crowd's morale and the queue's morale was pretty fantastic, really, when you consider the fact that everyone was standing out in the baking sun for hours and hours. Everyone was pretty good. If people needed to nip out to go and use the loo, people were saving their spaces, letting them back in. Even sort of like offering where somebody was going to get a drink, even offering the people next door if they wanted a drink. And a girl in front of us went off to go and get a drink, and we saved her space, and she came back with a bottle of water and said, "Did we want a drink?" But we were okay because we brought some bits, but she then gave it to someone else. So a lot of that going on, which was great. There was no people getting too agitated. The only people anybody was getting agitated was when we got near the front doors of this place, the fact that there were people queue jumping and walking straight in. And if everyone had known that, you could have just wandered in the place, because everyone's queuing up, and where people were coming in and out and getting hand stamps or had wristbands, things like that, where they were then obviously eligible to walk back in, there was one guy checking everybody. So quite basically he was going, oh, wristband stamps, things like that to people, and other people just, while he's dealing with one person, they're just walking past him. He did catch a couple of people, but then by the time we were in there and looking around, we saw them in there, so they'd obviously sneaked past him again. So it just goes to show what a mockery it all was. We may as well not bother paying and just wandered in. So also, I don't really see how they were judging numbers of people in there. They were saying that it was at capacity. I understand, and I've seen pictures of the start, and I know Becca was there and got in near the start. That it was, from those pictures, it was a bit more round, a bit more jam-packed at that point. But when we got in there, you were nowhere near capacity. It could have easily have took a good third of the queue, could have actually still fitted in that place. So their number counting was way off. So yeah, it really did. It tainted the day from what it could have been. I would be sitting here raving about it. If I'd have had longer in there, I'd probably made up my mind, and I'd still had other bits to show you. But it was a bit of a rush to look round, and it spoilt the day. And I do have to say, sort of like, I was going to come back here for the Sunday, and if I'd have been finished there sooner, I'd have been, and hadn't been standing up for 6.5 hours, I'd have had the energy to come back, and I was going to go around Boot Fairs, but as it turned out, apparently it was horrible down here and it was raining, so a lot of them had been cancelled, so lucky me in that way. So hopefully all the people I haven't been able to sell for the last 2 weeks will be out this weekend, and I might actually get some more bits. But it is a shame that I can't show you more stuff, because like I say, if I'd have had more time there were other things I probably would have taught myself around to get in, and I'll probably be raving about the event as well. So that is a shame. For me, it's sort of like a thing where if you're going to run events like that, there's no excuse for having 3 security guards on to handle well, I don't know the exact figure on the amount of people there overall, but you're talking in the thousands. Having 3 people as security, like, to actually manage the queue and the entry, is pathetic. The marshals, you talk to one, you got one story, you talk to another, you got another story. They had no radio contact with each other properly. I heard the ones what did have a little bit of radio contact, because they were managing across a roadway bit, so they had to have radio contact, although they were in line of sight, so they could just wave to each other. They actually had something come over on their radio about lost children, but nobody seemed too bothered about kids sort of like being kidnapped or abducted, so obviously not really their concern either. Even like I say, the celebrities inside, they each had like a helper, a member of the crew, apparently what they had on their backs. And like I say, the celebrities were moaning that they weren't doing their job, they were just sort of milling about, suiting themselves. And there was only 2 people selling tickets, which was a bit poor as well when you consider the size of the event. You think they'd get through a few more if they had maybe a few more people actually doing that job. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff like that, really. It comes down to the organisation of the event. And like I say, I may not be somebody who's been to a huge amount of the sci-fi events, but I've been to things like the Motor Show, and I've queued for that before, and it's never been that bad. And even the smaller event, which to be fair, actually probably, it's ground area because it's outside, but actually it's about equivalent to what the halls were up at the Comic Con. The Herne Bay High, well no, not Herne Bay High, it's not Herne Bay High, the Herne Bay Sci-Fi by the Sea sci-fi event where I bumped into Matt and Ben Washshop. Where we went to that, there was a bit of a queue, but by the time I parked and got there, the queue had gone. Everyone was in, and there was a lot of people there. I mean, the other guys will back me up. That event ran as smooth as anything. There was queues for autographs, but everyone was fine with that, and they weren't as big as the queues I'm talking about. It was still a big event, and there was still a lot of people around, but there was no hassle. There was no problems with the organisation. Everyone got on and did their thing, and there was no problems. So I find it a little bit strange that a big sort of regular organisation, let's put it this way, who regularly put on these sort of shows, showmasters I think they're called, that they made such an abortion of the actual organisation of the show. That's pretty poor. Like I say, I've been to other events, different things. I haven't been to AA, so I can't really judge it against AA, but I've never heard anyone who's been to AA say it's in any way been that bad. And apparently, well, I have looked online and seen where people complain about this event. Apparently some of their other Comic-Cons have been as badly organised, so they don't learn their lessons. You know, it's a pretty poor showing. I know the ticket price wasn't horrendously dear, you know, it's probably less than going to the cinema for an average ticket these days, but I'd have quite happily paid double and got straight in. So I think it's the case that if I go to another one, which there is one in October, hopefully it won't be as jam-packed because they might not have Stan Lee there. But I would certainly pre-book a ticket, and I would certainly get there in the early hours of the morning to get in the queue to get in and have the actual day there. Even if it's ram-packed, I can live with that. It would quieten down a little bit, but I would just push me way round and have a look at the stalls, but I'd have longer there to judge on what I want to get, have a decent look. But yeah, other than that, and a lot of moaning from me, that's about it. I probably will do another video about Age of Extinction. I won't bring it into this because otherwise this will go on too long. I don't want to witter on forever for you. But just to say, you know, I had a good night with that. Went there with Matt, Only Norris, or CM Harris, whichever way you want to class him as these days. Ben Wasshot 23, and I'm going to get his thing right if it kills me. The Fallen 835, which is actually Robert Turner. Went out, saw the film with them, and obviously Matt's other half and my other half as well. And that's Lisa and Claire, I should say their names really, shouldn't I? Yeah, we went there and had a great night. Unfortunately Ben couldn't come with us to have something to eat afterwards, but we went and had a meal at Pizza Hut and chewed the fat for the rest of the evening, and yeah, had a really nice night. That compared to this event, poles apart. Had a really nice time, and at some point we will organise about meeting up. I have said that if I can get the downstairs a bit more finished and a bit more tidy with the decorating side, I might invite the lads round and then we can have a bit of a conflab there. And that also gives us the advantage if we did want to do any filming of the fact that we're all meeting up. We could actually, probably Matt would be the best one if he's got his handheld camera. We could actually film it and upload it, and you can see full grown men, some more grown and older than others, fiddling around with robots and chatting about toys. But yeah, like I say, I'll probably do a vid about AOE and all the weird things involved in it, and yeah, that might be my next vid if I don't do a review on something. Anyway, thanks for watching. Sorry if this has been a bit of a moan rather than an actual happy video, but like I say, hopefully next week, if the weather's a bit nicer, I might have something fun to show you and be a bit more back to normal. Anyway, thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you again.